Hi guys, welcome back. I'm Cherie from Divinevisions and we are doing part 2 of Rasheem Carter's Crime Astrology. I'm not a professional astrologer by any means, but I have been learning along the way and I'm a quick learner. I think I'm getting it and I'm just finding it really fascinating what's coming through in these event charts. Now, as we know, natal charts in themselves, astrology is quite amazing. It's quite unique to every individual. And you know, event charts show us so much what's going on within the past, present and future, and any challenges that a person or a missing person in these cases is showing us. I just want to say quickly, I apologize for any outside noises, background noises that you're hearing in the background here. My microphone picks up everything. But anyway, if you've watched part 1, probably a good idea to go and watch that one first. And if you don't know who Rasheem is, it's good also to look at the case analysis that I did. It really tells you the whole story. I've done tarot readings as well on him. And the links for those will be in the description box below. Also, one of the amazing forensic astrologers that I have really looked up to and I really respect her work is Kirst from the Forensic Astrologer. I've got her link in the description box below as well. I have watched so many of her videos. She's had years and years of experience, I think over 22 years or more. She's been working on cases, missing persons, you name it, and she works with mapping, which is something I'd like to do and like to learn as well. And it's very accurate in terms of being able to locate missing people or items, and in this case with Rasheem, his remains were actually found where this particular event chart is of a trail cam, and the deer trail cam, this image here that you see is it was snapped at 4:32 p.m. and he was on private property at that stage. Now we see him shoeless, he's got no shirt, he's holding a stick. And to me, he looks like he's in trouble, okay? He looks scared, he's in trouble, he's looking at the woods. And as we know, he had stated to his mother that there were his co-workers after him trying to kill him. And that's what he had sent her, even the night before, messages about that, him being chased by guys in these vehicles. And they were, you know, white guys yelling out racial things to him, racial abuse. So it's just interesting. So the last one we saw him in the Dollar General store, and this one I've actually got him, I've got asteroids with this one as well, which I thought were really interesting to learn about. So we're going to be looking at just going through the ascendant, the first house, which is where his actual, this represents him. This ascendant right here in the first house in Aquarius represents Rasheem, and also Pisces is in the first house. So this is his whole energy right here, Aquarius and Pisces. And when we look at Aquarius, we have to also look at the ruling planet. So the ruling planet for Aquarius is in the 3rd house, which is the neighborhood, short distances, things like that, communication right here. And it's actually in, if I look at that, I'm thinking that's in, it's hard to see where that is actually. I think it's in Gemini. I'll actually check that just to be sure. What is that one in? No, I'm wrong. It's in Taurus. So it's just good to keep an eye on what's going on, because they can change obviously as it goes around. And we've also got Pisces, Neptune in the same house right here. Now, Kirst, because I get a lot of my information from her book that I just purchased, Volume 1. I'm only on Volume 1, but I have looked at a lot of her stuff. And she always says that the first house, you know, you've got to look at the planets that are there, because it also shows what's right in front of the victim. But also Saturn right here that we can see, this planet Saturn, can also represent the victim's body. So it represents the body. So we could look at it in two ways, that, okay, right here around his body, you know, we've got all these other planets going on. I mean, Vesta is really close to Saturn here, And I'm going to go into what that means because I don't have it all in my head right now. I've written it down. Vesta talks about the virgin goddess of hearth, home and family, and she's the hearth of Troy, so it represents the hearth of Troy. And I'm wondering if there's a guy called Troy. It could be, you don't ever know. And she's the daughter of Saturn, which is interesting. They're very close to each other there, and the sister of Jupiter. Now we've got Jupiter in the first house down here, okay, in Aries actually. But what I find fascinating about Jupiter and some of these planets here is that when we're talking about any injuries that he may have had at that stage, because we can see bruises on him. I don't know about you, but I can see bruises on him. And in Kirsty's book, The Forensic Astrologer, I've learned through different planets what, and star signs, what different injuries can mean. And so the Saturn here represents bones and the skeleton. It can be weak legs. And I mean, if he's running, and he has been for a while, I mean, if we look at the 10:15 a.m. when he's exited that Dollar General store, where did he go for like 6 hours? You know what I'm saying? So he might have been running a long time. He might have been exhausted by now, because it can represent Capricorn. Okay, Capricorn is linked with Saturn, so it's interesting that his moon, his sign, the co-ascendant here, the moon is in Capricorn as well, and it can represent injuries to the stomach, the diaphragm, with the moon as well. And yeah, so I'm getting a little ahead of myself, but that's just, yeah, I'm just talking about it as I go along, just being drawn to whatever I'm doing at the time, to make sense. I don't want to get too overwhelming. Don't want to overwhelm you guys, but yeah, I don't want to overwhelm you here, but because also the moon is opposing this house, the 5th house, which was also, I couldn't put it in here, but you would have seen it in the part 1. Folsom has actually come down into the 5th house. Now, because I had the asteroids, it wouldn't allow me to fit everything in here, but Folsom was in the 5th house with Taylorsville. And what it tells me is that he felt imprisoned at this point when we're looking at, the 5th house is all about fun and enjoyment. And I'm thinking that these guys were having a lot of fun, and in the fact that they were taunting him and imprisoning him, and maybe even circling around him and restricting him, because Saturn is all about restrictions, and Capricorn as well, where moon is in Capricorn. So I feel like they were restricting him, they were trapping him, that maybe even circling around him, which is interesting because it says here with one of the asteroids, which one is it? Yes, there's one that circles around. When I'm looking at right next to the moon here, Pholus, look, I have to tell you, I don't know how to pronounce them all. But he's a centaur like Chiron, okay? And we've got Chiron down here, which is a wounded healer. And Pholus actually had a wounded foot, like he stood on a poisoned arrow and died from that. Now, the amount of times that a bow and arrow is mentioned in these planets and different things is just amazing, okay? So when I see Pholus, I'm thinking of, it says that he was found patrolling banks of the river in the 7th circle of hell. So it kind of tells me that these people, maybe even 7 of them, were circling around him. That's just what I feel with that imprisonment, because, I am connecting Folsom, the asteroid, with Folsom Prison. That's just something I'm intuitively doing. Folsom asteroid does not mean that, by the way. That's just something that came to me, and that's how I'm reading this intuitively, is that in the 5th house they were taunting him, they were having a lot of fun, that they were able to imprison him. And also, because Taylorsville was there at 26 degrees in the 5th house as well, in that Gemini right there. And there was at least 2 males with that Gemini who were getting a lot of fun and enjoyment from taunting him as well. And they might have been yelling out to him, being that Gemini energy right there, and the Mercury in the 7th house, which is the perpetrator as well. So I feel like they might have been yelling out to him with that Mars energy. It's hostile language, it's vocal, and they might have been jeering at him and taunting him, like, we're going to get you, come on out, and whistling at him. That's what I could hear. In my, when I'm tuning in psychically, I could hear like them whistling at him. Now, if we have also Saturn can represent an older man or older men. Like Aquarius here is connected with the 11th house, which talks about others. It's a group of people. So if we're looking at Aquarius right here with Saturn, maybe there was many men. The Saturn represents older men as well, that we're possibly waiting out for him, because Saturn can wait a long time. It can hold. It's about restrictions. It's about stopping you. It's about prolonging and holding down. So at that point, we know in that trail cam at 4:32 that Rasheem is actually right there hiding away from them, because we also see his Aquarius in the 12th house right here. Okay, now the 12th house is all about things that are hidden, and when we look down here, Pisces, Neptune, that is what normally is in the 12th house right here, and that's in his first house. So we can see that with him being in the first house here, this is his energy, that he is actually hiding on this property. Okay, this is the things that are hidden right here. And we've got the Clement name, which I am referring to as the co-workers. I don't know if it's his boss as such, but I'm definitely getting the co-worker energy. And we have Blake. Now, the reason I chose the asteroid Blake, and this is just tripping me out, seriously, is that the private property owner's name that Rasheem is on in this trail cam, and also, his remains were later found on that property. That property owner's last name is Blakeney. So when I saw this in the 12th house, right next to the Clements, in this hiding, these things that are hidden section, it can be hidden enemies, I'm pretty sure, if I remember. This is telling me that, look at these, they're like conjuncting each other, 6 and 8, so they're definitely very close to him. Okay, they're very close to him at this stage. And interesting that when I saw this one, where is it? 18 degrees Saturn and then 18 degrees Uranus, which is also his energy right here. This is the co-ruler of Aquarius up here. I just kind of thought, isn't that interesting? What if they were like 18 meters away from him, something along those lines? It could tell us something. It doesn't have to necessarily be that, but because this number 3 represents local distance, short distance, it's in the area, somebody who's in the neighborhood, very close by. I wouldn't be surprised if they were that, pretty close to him. And when we see Neptune Pisces as well, it represents the feet. So I'm thinking he may have had injuries to his feet. He was shoeless. He was running around possibly for a long time. Weak legs, sore feet, and we had pholos up here with the foot. He might have stood on something sharp. You look at all sorts of things going on here with this. And Pluto here as well is talking about destruction. It's death, so he was very close to, I feel, death around this time. They were closing in on him. When we look at the Scorpio, that's his sun sign as well, in the 9th house. So he was trying to keep at a distance from them, I feel, with that 9th house, meaning, travel. Gosh, guys. So we can see that he was running through water at some stage. He has water on his jeans. There might have been, I think there was a creek somewhere that he was running through, and maybe even trying to hide within water or around the water there. So Vesta, as we said before, is very close to Saturn there. And we're just going to have a quick look. So, yes, she carries she's to do with fire and burning as well, and carries a fire stick, or anything to do with a fire stick. So I'm wondering if any of them burnt something, or, anything to do with fire could be interesting there. But she, he was actually on someone's property, on someone's home, home space, the property there. So that's interesting about the hearth, the home, and the family. Could one of the people that were there as a perpetrator be connected with that family? Are they family of that person? Don't know. And then we have Clements at 29 degrees here too. So I put Clements there. This is not to say, that his boss has got anything to do with his disappearance or death. We don't really know. It's all alleged. that person's innocent unless proven guilty in a court of law. So there's no pointing of fingers, but his name has been publicly mentioned. So I thought, okay, let's put it somewhere and see where they are. May not necessarily mean him individually, but I do connect it with co-workers. So we got Nessus down here, or Nessu, down in Pisces, first house right here. Right, close enough to Neptune here as well, and it's in the Moon Deacon, which is interesting because that's Rasheem's also signified by the moon, so represented by the moon. So we see here that Nessus carried Heracle's wife, and this is a mythology, across the river and tried to have sex with her, but he was shot by a hydra-poisoned arrow into his breast. And he is among centaurs that patrol the outer rings of the circle of violence, making sure no one is out of their position. So he's like a leader of the pack. So I'm wondering if, it's interesting they're talking about a female presence and someone trying to get it on with the female, basically. Is there a female involved? That's still something I'm questioning here. And there's another reason why I ask that as well, is because of the other ones I'll get to in a moment with Eros and Ceres. Yes, it's interesting. So we're going to see Jupiter's in here as well. And once again, it is connected with Sagittarius, which is an arrow, bow and arrow. Archery, is somebody into archery? Are they hunters? This is another reference to bow and arrows. Also, Kirst, the forensic astrologer, had stated that Jupiter can represent, crossbows and things like that as well. So I'm going to have a look at where I found that, because that was quite interesting information. Yes, it can also represent being in Neptune, that someone might have been under the influence, they might have been drinking, they might have been intoxicated, they might have had drug poisoning or alcohol poisoning. It could be something along those lines if someone's been drinking like crazy as well. And, with the Jupiter, crossbow, hunting, bleeding out, poisoning, alcohol and drugs is all there. Yes, it is. So also with, we're going to get into the perpetrator in a minute. But I just wanted to focus on those in the first house just quickly right there. So it's interesting, we've got females being like virgin females, it's like the males wanting the female. Also with Eros, we had interesting love affairs going on here as well. It's interesting, it's between Venus and Mercury, and we see the Sun and Venus together. And in the very first reading, part 1 that we did, it did show that there might be a love triangle of some sort going on. There's something there, I feel. Yeah. Now let's see, what are we looking at now? So we're going to look into the descendant, which is the 7th house represents, and the descendant, the perpetrator. And one of the co-workers' names is sitting smack bang right here, right opposite the ascendant, which is Rasheem. And it's in opposition with Saturn, which would be maybe Rasheem's body, okay, his actual body. So it shows there's conflict between Rasheem and this co-worker. Now, we don't know for sure if he was actually there. We don't really know. I just wanted to put his name there because the family are really concerned about this guy and they want to know where he is. He was one of the guys that Rasheem had conflict with before he disappeared. So he is quite an interesting POI, I guess you could call him. But I found that placement really, really interesting right there at that moment. We also have Ceres, okay, right, not that far away. So I'm going to have a look at what that one means. If we look at Ceres, this actually really freaked me out because, well, she's known as the goddess of agriculture and grain and fertility. She's like, she has motherly relationships, so she's a nurturer, things like that. What it kept mentioning throughout the whole thing that I was reading was about pregnant sows, like, pigs were offered for sacrifices and things like that. And it was just so many things mentioned about pigs. And the rumour that's been going around in Taylorsville, and that one of the residents there who's quite racist actually put up a Facebook post stating that Rasheem had been eaten or been given to hogs. And I just find this strange. Like it's in series right here in the 7th house, not far from this co-worker, but just even in the 7th house is just really interesting. And another thing I read in that article, it's on Wikipedia, it's really interesting, was that this is so weird, another name for vagina, or for, you know, females' parts, was porcus, meaning pig. And I thought, isn't this interesting? It keeps referring to the female, you know, female sexuality. There's a love affair, there's attraction, there might have been a fight over a woman. I mean, we don't know really. And also it represents, you know, the crossing of field boundaries amongst neighbours would be a crime. So if they were crossing over into each other's properties, it would be a crime. Well, they were trespassing that day, all of them, on that property, unless there is somebody connected with that property we don't know of. But otherwise they would have been trespassing. But this one had stated that, you know, people in those days, if they were to trespass across those boundaries into a neighbour's property, they would be hanged. And that, oh my God, when I read that, my eyes widened, because I thought, holy crap, because Rasheem's lawyer, you know, and his family Rasheem's family had gotten an independent autopsy and had stated that they believe he was lynched, he was hanged. It can represent also whipping, so someone could have been whipped. He could have been whipped. Now also we see symbols for series as poppies. And it's opium poppies, and it can represent death and rebirth, and it promotes sleep. So I'm wondering, is there a drug connection with opium or something with these people? Whoopsies, sorry about that. We don't know. But we had also Eros in the 7th house as well, in right between Venus and Mercury. And we did talk about this Venus, Mercury, the Sun connections in part 1 if you want to go and watch that. I'm not going to go deeply into it right now, but I will say that, you know, being in the 7th house and the descendant, whatever these star signs are, etc., and planets can actually tell you a little bit about the perpetrator. There could be a female with Venus right there, as well as Mercury. A female may have been a witness to Rasheem's death, because Mercury can be a witness as well. And as we know, Mercury, Gemini, you know, they can be somebody who's under 30. So is somebody 28, 26, 24, that kind of thing. And Ceres, I think, if I remember, Ceres can represent a mature woman, if I remember reading that. Just trying to see. Yeah, she can represent a mature woman. So there's somebody who could be 34, 33, I think we saw last time with the female. Could be, doesn't have to be. But yeah, definitely connected with the Taurus energy. So it looks like she may have been there. If we look at Taurus, which is ruled by Venus and in Libra as well, it looks like being around the death, very close to the death, the cusp of the death. And the Sun rules this co-worker who's in Leo, okay, rules Leo, which the co-worker's in. So there's this tight-knit thing going on maybe here. And being in, you know, I don't know what's happened there. Being in the 3rd house right here could represent that she was with them, traveling with them. Yeah, I don't know what I'm doing with that thing. Sorry about that, but yeah, I'm trying to get this screen right. So, okay, now Eros right here is almost like Cupid. He's the love god, Greek god, the love god. He's a handsome young man, full of mischief, and this one is again telling me he carries bows and arrows. So this person, these people, these you know, perpetrators, I feel, are hunters. They carry bows and arrows. Now, when we looked at Pallas Athena, I had to remove her because there wasn't enough room, but she was in the 5th house with Folsom as well. She is a war leader. So somebody is, could have been 2 people, really took it upon themselves to lead the group. The rest of them maybe influenced it in some way. Yeah, very strongly here. And it could have been that somebody here, could have been Mercury, this person, whoever this is, or even the Sun, but it's right between Venus and Mercury, however you want to read it. It looks like somebody may have been trying to matchmake someone else, and there's been an issue. Also, it's interesting, this person could be an artist. They might like drawing, they might be romantic. Normally in relationships, they could be a musician. And it also stated, which was interesting because I'd never heard of it, is that Eros also was connected to homosexuality. So is that an element there? We don't really know if something was taken the wrong way or if that's another element there. And Eros is the key holder to hearts, so it could have been someone that carried many keys with them as well, if we're looking at it that way. Symbols with Eros are dolphins, flutes, roosters, and torches as well. And also Eros and Psyche, I think her name is Psyche, they had a love affair. So they were hiding behind their, husbands and wives. They were sneaking off and having this love affair. I think they got found out. But yeah, it's just a weird storyline when we're looking at, is there a love connection going on with some female here? So that's that, guys. It's crazy. So just let me go back on this thing. So, yes, now Mercury up here with Virgo. Okay, Virgo is work-related as well. It's health. But this could be somebody who speaks really fast, being Mercury right here. Could be someone who speaks fast. We've also got Gemini in the 4th house. So the 4th house, Gemini, is connected to Mercury right here as well. I just wanted to, being Mars in there as well, they might speak very loudly. They might speak very in your face, confrontative as well. And where did I have it? I did have it here somewhere. Just got to find it. Yes, they might be under the influence of something as well. Could definitely be under the influence of something, because I'm pretty sure there's something that's opposing Neptune there. Yeah, but I don't know why I came up with that one, because I think it was earlier in the part 1 that I saw someone under the influence of something there as well. And yes, in Mercury energy, Uranus energy, and Mars energy are very quick. So they're fast energies. This could have happened really quickly. And when we see Rasheem's, rulership, Uranus right here in Aquarius, that's his energy. It could be also that he was really prepared for anything. Like, it was very unpredictable for him. Anything could have happened at any given time. And I think that they liked that idea, that they were, being the element of surprise and just coming out from everywhere after him. Yes. That's what that looks like. We've got the Sun in the 8th house. Was there some kind of connection with, well, I don't know, I'll get the fire again with that Ceres energy. I think it was Ceres, wasn't it? I'm wondering if there was some fire at some stage or burning of something. But I definitely feel when we're looking at Libra, it's partnerships here too. Venus and, Venus and the Sun are still in Libra right here as well. Yes, and also being the Sun, which can represent Leo energy, which is Leo right over here, can represent someone who's got a lot of adrenaline going. Their blood is racing. That's something there to look at as well. So it's definitely Rasheem. You're trembling, that kind of thing as well. And the Sun can represent an older male in their 40s or 50s. And the Mercury is a younger person. So it's interesting, we've got the Sun at 45. It says 9 degrees, but 45. So I'm wondering, is the guy 45 around that age? Could be. Don't ever know. Yes, we don't know. But this is just fascinating to me, guys. I don't know about you. Now, when we're looking at the end of the matter, this is something that I'm still learning about. When I see Mars could be, 2 males, very aggressive males, but it could be a vehicle. We're talking about Laurel right here, right next to Mars, and Laurel is where they were staying at. So being the home place, the hotel, that's where they were staying at as like their home. It shows me that they may have travelled quite fast back, out of there and went straight back to Laurel. That could be something. Yeah, and another thing here too is that I'm seeing it as the home space, like at the moment they are on somebody's home. their property, which is what the fourth house also represents. And, you know, being Mars can represent metal and vehicles. I'm wondering if they had their vehicles on that property. Also, when we're looking at different things like Pallas Athena, they're talking about her holding a spear, and we're talking about bow and arrows with Eros and Nessu, I think it was. There's different ones that they're talking about, crossbows, long metal instruments perhaps as well. So there could be arrows or long metal weapons being used here. And we did see that with Saturn, Kirsten in her book had stated that that can represent animals being involved or machinery. Now, what's really scary about this is that the Saturn represents skeleton and bones, and his skeleton and skull, especially his skull, was found to have clean cuts. The top part of his skull was sliced off, basically. And so when you think it looked like a machinery, some kind of machinery or tools done that. Yeah, it's pretty gruesome. Yeah, so he was, the last thing that was found of his were his bones, you know. It's pretty sad. Yeah. Yep, it's just really sad. If we're going back to Mercury in Virgo, we're looking at someone who may have an illness of the mind, and as I said, could speak really fast. They might stammer or stutter. They might have indigestion issues. They might have had, at that time, because usually a victim will fight back. There's defense, you know, wounds on them, but there's also defense wounds on a perpetrator perhaps. There could be injuries to their arms, shoulders, muscles and bones, hands, you know, things like that could have been shown some injuries there as well. Yes, I'm wondering if there was head trauma with that Mars energy there, as well as Aries energy right here as well with Chiron. I'm just thinking also it's very explosive with Mars and Uranus, unpredictable, very angry, very brutal as well. And yeah, I feel like it's definitely a work connection because I had to take it out of here, but Georgia was actually in the 6th house here as well. So to me that just, you know, definitely shows work related. We've got a perpetrator in Virgo, which is connected with the workplace right here. Yeah, I'm wondering, you know, who knows, there might have even been firing, you know, arrows that had poison on them or something. We just don't ever know how these people think. Were they firing arrows at him that had poison on them? Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if there were crossbows actually, because I think these people are hunters. Yeah, they were on a mission to get him, that's right. Yeah, so he was hiding out on this property, on Blakeney's property right there, and they were really close by. You know, they were really just, yeah, very much closing in on him to the point where he may not have had any more energy. He could have been injured from just trying to get away as well, which would have really been a predicament for him. Like the moon in Capricorn is detrimental, so I feel like something might have even happened with an injury from a bow and arrow, you know, from an arrow even in his foot, or something sharp in his foot. It's interesting, that storyline with the mythology, and also we're looking at Neptune Pisces around the feet. So we see him shoeless. That just tells me weak legs. You know, he's had bruises on his stomach as well, which also represents the moon. So he was, yeah, I feel like they had punished him beforehand, and somehow he got loose, or they let him loose, and then they were hunting him down. And that's just, yeah, that's what I got, guys. Let me know what you think, and I will get on to the other one very soon, which will be the text messages that he had between him and his former boss, or his boss at the time, on that Saturday night before this all happened. And it's going to be very interesting. I think that will also help to put this story together, hopefully. Let us know what you think, guys. Love and blessings.